fine, thank you.
Thank you. My mic's not. This is. Okay, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. Thank you to this great coordinating commission. Looking forward to tonight's, I'm sure, robust discussion. I am. No, I had my. Yikes. Okay, we're going to have to hold on 1 second. Welcome. Say hi to your neighbors. Okay, again, welcome. Thank you for being here this evening. I'm excited to be serving as the chair of LGCC, Local Government Coordinating Commission, and excited to have Vice Chair Courtney Jackson on my right. I call this March 4th, 2025 hybrid meeting of the LGCC to order. Commissioner Benson are appearing via Zoom, and Commissioner Baca will be excused. I'd like to ask folks to please join me in a silent invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Would you mind, Member Jackson, leading us in the pledge? Thank you. Member Jackson will be leading us in the pledge this evening. So, moment of silence. Right behind you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and thanks to all who came out this evening. We have approval of the minutes. I don't have, do we have the minutes in front of us?
Madam Chair, those will be scheduled for the next regular scheduled meeting in
Okay,
April.
minutes will be rescheduled for the next LGCC meeting. Today is a meeting to get us through. Public comment, we will move on to agenda item number 4, public comment. You will have 2 minutes to share your comments. You will then be notified when your time is up. For those participating via Zoom, you will be muted and moved to the waiting room. Should any of the commissioners have follow-up questions to your comments, you will have an opportunity to answer. Cheyenne T., how many do we have signed up to speak? And please call the first name.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. We have 5 signed up for the public comments. I'm calling their names. Jennifer Topley, followed by Kylie Charter, followed by Samantha Ashby.
Thank you. Button. There you go.
Now?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Hi, guys. My name is Jennifer Topley. I'm a behavioral health therapist for Albuquerque Public Schools. And these wonderful people standing with me are my colleagues. First and foremost, we wanted to express our deepest gratitude for recognizing the role of a behavioral health therapist in addressing the opioid crisis. Your commitment to supporting mental health interventions at an early stage is not just a decision, it's a powerful statement that acknowledges the reality we see every day. Prevention starts long before addiction takes hold. As behavioral health therapists, we witness firsthand the struggles our students face, anxiety, trauma, emotional pain, often before they even have the words to describe what they're feeling. We see children carrying burdens too heavy for their young shoulders, and we know that early intervention can change the trajectory of their lives. By investing in their mental health now, we are not just helping them navigate their emotions today, we're preventing the cycles of despair, self-medication, and addiction that too many individuals face later in life. The connection is clear. Early mental health treatment is substance misuse prevention. When we equip children with tools to manage their emotions, cope with adversity, and build resilience, we are giving them a future where they don't have to turn to substances to numb their pain. We are giving them hope, and we are giving them life. This initiative is a testament to the understanding that mental health care is not a luxury, it's a necessity. And for your support and your willingness to stand with us in this mission, we are profoundly grateful. Thank you for believing in this work, in our students, and in the power of prevention. We remain steadfast in our commitment to their well-being today and always. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Shanti.
Samantha Ashby, Debbie Medina.
Was there a Kylie on there?
Yes, Kylie Sharder.
Am I next?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay. All right. Whew, my 2 minutes is already going. Thank you all for everything. I don't even have anything prepared to say. I'm just so grateful. I'm afraid I'm going to cry. You heard from those were my unicorns that I had told you guys about that were my behavioral health therapists. And I'm so proud of them and the work that they do. And here is a chunk of my Crossroads counselors. And they are here because I wanted you to see their faces and know these are the people out there doing this work. And we are just so grateful to even be at this point where we're having this conversation, to be able to talk about what our kids need, and the kind of impact that each one of these, including my unicorns, makes in working with these kids every day. To be able to have access to them is something that not every entity working in the substance prevention realm has, and we do. We're in the schools with the kids. So to be able to have a chance to expand our programs and to be able to reach more kids is just so incredibly exciting. And I wanted to just be able to share that with you and really, again, say thank you. These people mean the world to me. I am so proud to stand up here and have them be up here with me. We've gone through a lot. We have rebuilt programs. We have expanded. And I can't express enough to you in this time. I'm really sorry. I spent 10 minutes just wiping away my tears.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I am equipped with data, I want to tell you. If I need to illustrate the impact. Samantha.
You can finish yours.
I was going to tag team, right, and just go with it, but if I need to give you data on the impact that this team and my unicorns makes, I can do that. I can talk about the need that's out there all day for these kids, and I can show you data on that as well. We make a difference. So thank you, and I'll turn it over to Samantha.
Thanks so much.
Press this button? Oh, this.
Good evening.
I don't know if I'm doing it right, but okay, here we go. Samantha Ashby, I'm a Crossroads counselor at school and the parent of 2 Albuquerque public schools. Graduated early, 1 in progress. And I'd like to express my sincere gratitude for the LGCC's consideration.
I think you could just push it and let go.
Oh, okay, I see.
There you go.
Okay, thank you. That makes it easier. Expanding the APS Crossroads and Behavioral Health Therapist programs. As a Crossroads counselor for the past 12 years and an independently licensed clinician for nearly 19 years, I can say with confidence that expansion of these programs will save lives and contribute to the success of young people in our community. We offer students and their families a safety net where when they encounter overwhelming challenges with trauma, instability, mental health, and substance use, addiction in their families. In addition, we provide evidence-based interventions as well as responding with empathy, kindness, and compassion. Our work includes efforts to prevent substance use issues before they start, by planning school-wide prevention activities and acting as a consultant to the school community. However, there are far too few of us, only 15 Crossroads counselors to serve a district of 68,000 students, and we are in dire need of more counselors to meet the growing demands of our community. Funding additional counselors will expand our ability to do more of what we do best. We will have the resources needed to provide effective prevention efforts in elementary and middle schools prior to the initiation of substance use. Thank you for your interest in these programs and for recognizing our work.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Debbie Medina, followed by Michelle Medved.
Hello, good evening. My name is Debbie Medina. I'm the Crossroads Counselor at Del Norte High School, and I've been the Crossroads Counselor with Albuquerque Public Schools for 16 years. Instead of sharing with you my experience as a Crossroads Counselor, I had a student, a former student who is now a graduate of APS, who was asked to write an assignment, something that she was grateful for or thankful for. With her permission, whenever needed, she allowed me to share this with you. So these are an APS student's words. I'm thankful for Crossroads. They showed me the light at the end of my dark tunnel. They taught me so much about how drugs are made and how they affect my body and how they make me treat my family. Miss Medina is an amazing person. She has been there for me, and I feel as though I can talk to her without being scared of judgment. Crossroads is an amazing program that showed me there is more to life than a pipe and addiction. I'll never forget my first time in her office. I thought it was going to be just another AA class. She was there to show me how to grow and have the future she knew I could have. I learned how to cope with the stress of life without having to resort to the high to escape. This program has shined a light into my mind that I never knew could exist, a life without addiction.
Thank you so much.
Our next speaker is Michelle Medved.
She was running late, and so she's not here. There she is. Oh, she's here.
Welcome, Michelle. You can come straight here. Was there any more speakers? Is she the last?
She is the last one.
You're the last one, or else I'd give you a break. But
So you get 2 minutes, and you just push this button.
It's already on.
it's already on. So you don't have to push nothing.
Okay.
You can just speak into the microphone.
Okay.
We'll stand here with you.
Hi. Hello. I just came, my name's Michelle Medved, and I am a Crossroads counselor, and I love it. I just came from teaching a PIP class and to middle schoolers. And I've been working with the Crossroads group since 2017 when I moved here from Arizona. And I just can tell you that I just left with kids that were asking, when are you going to meet with me? When are you going to come to my school and meet with me? And from an hour and a half before it started, they kind of were just sitting there looking. Their body language was kind of flat. And in an hour and a half, they went to, when are you going to meet with me? When are you going to come to my school? When are we going to talk? And I think that's pretty exciting, that in an hour and a half, that's what, matriculated. And even the two parents were wonderful. They just wanted more. And you give them, I give them my business card, and I said, I will meet you anywhere, anytime. Well, not anywhere, but, at their school. And it's a wonderful program to build bridges with how do we deal with substances? How do we deal with kids that are starting to use marijuana and nicotine as early as age 9? Sometimes we're seeing it at age 8. New Mexico is one of the states with the earliest use start, and we have to do more. We have to get into the elementary schools, and we're not there. And middle schools, there's only 2 of us, and we have to do more. And I'm excited to be here, and I wish I was here earlier, but I was finishing the class. And I'm just really grateful that you're all here listening to us and hearing what we have to say. We have an amazing leader. Kylie is amazing. She's a wonderful boss. She's caring, she's kind, and she's proactive. So thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Perfect timing. In all the ways, thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you to
Madam.
everybody who came out and signed up for public comment. I know it's not the easiest thing in the world to do, so thank you for being engaged and bringing your voice to this chamber. We will move forward with old business, item number 6, opioid settlement funding. So in front of you, you should have in your packets, you should have our full edited version of, and where we came through at, of the local government coordinating council policy policy guidance. I'm trying to get the name right. Policy guidance for the opioid settlement funding. I move approval. If I have a second, we can move it to discussion. Second by Counselor Rogers. Y'all might want to push your button so we can hear you.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and up for discussion.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Counselor Rogers.
I have a couple of amendments that I would like to move if now's the time.
Yes, I think this is the time.
Okay, in your packets, they're 2 on 1 page, just for ease of looking at them.
Safe paper.
Yes, so we'll start with amendment number 1. On page 5, amend section 12, funding categories and percentages by striking subsection A1B3. And this was just based on our legal review. There were some specific exceptions and restricted items in the original settlement agreement. And so capital projects supporting youth and families in hard-hit communities, recreation facilities, and community centers. They thought that was expressly talked about in the settlement agreement, so just striking that specifically from our legal review. I move the First Amendment.
I will second, and I have some questions. Okay, second. I don't quite. So this is under on page 5 at the bottom. Under the Vital Strategies recommendation number 17, connecting disconnected youth.
Yes, so last meeting we talked a little bit about capital and could we use this on capital projects, which Mr. Hines talked us through at our last meeting. But there was a specific part of this was recreational facilities and community centers that was expressly called out in the settlement agreement.
As not eligible.
Right, so.
Oh.
Right, so don't go construct community centers with opioid settlement dollars, because it's supposed to be used to save lives, treatment, prevention, those types of activities.
So we can expand program. I just want to make sure I understand.
Correct.
This does not limit us on expanding programming in our recreation or community centers, but it stops us from saying we're going to build a new gym.
Correct.
Okay.
So capital projects, building projects tied to recreation centers and community centers specifically.
Okay. Thank you. Is there any other questions, discussion? Yes, Commissioner Olivas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess just a clarifying question. So the settlement, I guess if someone could actually point me to that paragraph, I don't really have a problem with this fundamentally, because at the end of the day, I think that the demands on these funds are so great that restricting this doesn't really change the outcome. But I don't actually believe that is explicitly stated. And in fact, I think that you could make an argument that if we were trying to do prevention and you need to build a facility to do prevention, so yeah, a new gym or a new rec center or something like that for youth that we're trying to prevent them from getting into that life, I feel like we did some research on that earlier, but again, I'm happy to support this because at the end of the day, I think there's enough need that it doesn't really matter if we take this out.
Sure. We have Mr. Hines who found that for us, so he can help us with that.
You got to push the button again. Sorry. It was already. There you go.
There we go, much better. So again, my name is Alan Hines from the City Attorney's Legal Office. It's not expressly prohibited, you're absolutely correct. I don't believe that's what I said last time. but it does seem like it's too attenuated, like it doesn't actually fit into any of the categories. And we tried to make it fit, and like you said, there could be arguments, but there's some significant risk there too.
Any other, yes, Council Faber Court?
Is this on now? Okay. I just want to make sure, Madam Chair, that I am looking at the right thing, because I am looking at the document entitled Final, 3.4.2 packet. But then when you look at this amendment, number 5 on this amendment was struck last time. And so do I have wrong documents in front of me?
I don't believe so. Go ahead, it's on.
Oh, thank you.
When the red light goes on, that means you can talk.
Sure. Sorry, Madam Chair. Thank you, Council Fabercorn. These were I was supposed to move them last time and forgot, so I did not update them based on what happened last meeting. So that's my fault.
Okay.
Because I forgot to move them last time.
Okay,
So I can get the
But in
correct
your
section.
packet, which I'm in the packet that is online, available online, it's still in there.
see, this is why I'm confused. The document that I'm looking at is titled Final Packet, and it's not there. Number 5 is not there in the version that we passed out of LGCC last time.
It's not a number 5, it's on page 5, under section 12, A1B.
Right. Madam Chair, I'm saying that, number 5, so page 5, 12A1B 5, which is showing up on this proposed amendment, does not exist in the document anymore.
Oh, yes, the APS Crossroads Port Spree Pit.
Right.
Okay, yes, so we probably need to amend that back in.
No, it stays out. I just wanted to make sure I was working from the right document because it was not matching.
Okay.
We took it out based on the request from APS. So it should not be there, but since it was still on here, I was confused.
On the document, can we have clarification? Just on the packet I'm looking at that is available online, it does not have it, but if there's any clarification about the final document that might have been sent.
So Madam Chair, thank you for the question. So the final documents were provided by the City of Albuquerque, and we combined with the exhibits to create the final published version that is online. So the amendments that were submitted today by the city is under the assumption that they were not included in the published document, and that's why they're before you all for consideration. Now, if they are not in the published version, then no action is necessary because that amendment was already incorporated as a result of the last meeting or what was provided by the city as a final document for this meeting.
Great.
If that makes sense.
Thanks.
So Madam Chair, so on my hard copy that we all have in front of us, that's what I'm looking at. On page 5, it would be section 12A1B number 3.
Yes.
Capital projects supporting youth and families in hard-hit communities, i.e. recreation centers, facilities, and community centers. That's what we're taking out. Thank you. Sorry about that, y'all. I should have moved these last time, and we did all kinds of things.
I don't think you were off. I think Councilor Faber-Corn was just making clear
Sure.
that we have the right documents, so.
Awesome. So I will read my amendment one more time just so
Thank
we're clear. On page 5, section 12, 1A, B3, we are striking.
Thank you. And I second that. And we can go to a vote. Any other further discussion? Yes, Councilor Champagne.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can I just get a little more clarification on why we're getting rid of it again?
Sure. Councilor Sampaio, because with this money, we are not, the interpretation was that it would be a stretch to use opioid settlement dollars to construct new community centers or rec centers. Because it's not specifically tied to opioid prevention, treatment, those types of activities. That doesn't say we can't use this money to do programming within our already existing community centers and recreation centers. We just can't construct new ones using opioid settlement dollars. But if we wanted to build a treatment center, that would be a capital project that would be allowable.
And we could still have programs at a community center that are drug prevention.
Correct.
but not an after-school program for jump roping.
You just couldn't build the center that the jump roping is gonna be in with opioid settlement dollars.
But we can fund a jump roping program.
If you can tie it to opioid settlement and opioid treatment and how it's gonna help kids not
Okay.
get addicted.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I think you can, thank you, alternative to yes.
Any other further discussion? I just would know that I think I'll support this evening, mostly because I think we need to get the direct people-to-people connection is what makes a difference. And if we want to build new community centers, we should do that with some other dollars we have access to, in my opinion. So this feels good. For the limited dollars we have, let's get people connecting and expanding programs. Any other questions? All right, Shanti, can we go for a roll call vote? Is it you that leads it? Yes.
Yes, Madam Chair. I'm starting with the commissioners. Madam Chair,
Yes.
Commissioner Benson,
Yes.
Commissioner Olivas,
Yes.
Councillor Rogers,
Yes.
Councillor Fiblecorn,
Yes.
Councillor Champagne,
Yes.
Councillor Grout,
Yes.
Dr. Sengel,
Yes.
APS member Courtney Jackson, Vice Chair Courtney Jackson,
Yes.
Member Heather Benavides.
Yes.
So that passes.
That passes unanimously. Thank you all. And I just did want to take the moment to say thank you to both our city and county staff who, in a very short turnaround, tried to wrangle and get all our amendments and our comments. And so if there's any confusion about paper versus online published documents, we do have the experts here that can help us get to there. So if anybody needs that, let us know. Thank you. Now, I believe you said you had another amendment, Councilor Rogers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move amendment number 2 in your packets. Let me double check, page 6, yes. Section 13 under restricted uses. And same thing, I should have done this last meeting, but in the opioid settlement agreement, there was a section about restricted uses. So I just added a sentence to say, in addition to all the restrictions contained in the New Mexico opioid allocation agreement, the LGCC recommends the following, just in line with what's in the settlement agreement, that we should be looking at that document for restricted uses.
Okay. Thank you. We have a second. And so I just want to make sure we're clear for the audience too, that it's just adding the words in addition to all restrictions contained in the New Mexico opioid allocation agreement, and what's already in the document. Okay. Any discussion on the item? All right, Madam Shanti, please do a roll call vote.
Yes. Yes, Madam Chair. Chair Barboa,
Yes.
Commissioner Benson,
Yes.
Commissioner Olivas,
Yes.
Councillor Rogers,
Yes.
Councillor Fiblecorn,
Yes.
Councillor Champagne,
Yes.
Councillor Grout,
Yes.
Dr. Sengel,
Yes.
APS member Vice Chair Courtney Jackson,
Yes.
APS member Heather Benavides.
Yes.
Thank you. It passes.
Thank you. We have one more amendment proposed by Dr. Lindstrom and JR from the county that I'll read. A floor substitute is, I can read this out loud, and we do have Dr. Lindstrom and JR from the city available for any questions. At this time, I move to submit a floor, y'all should have it. Does everybody have it? No.
Madam Chair, it is the blue handout.
The blue is the actual exhibit that they're adding, replacing. And it's been worked on jointly, as we have continually requested for them to work together. It was worked on jointly by Dr. Lindstrom from the county, and I'm sorry, JR, that I am not remembering your last name. Rael, I should remember that. Thank you. So I'm going to read the floor substitute, and then we could go into questions. So at this time, I move to submit a floor substitute for Exhibit D of the published agenda. The Exhibit D spreadsheet received in time for publication was not the latest version. It has since been updated and provided to the members in advance. We will also post online and reflect the updated version on the screen. Do I have a discussion? Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a second, and now open for discussion.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Vice Chair Jackson.
I guess if whoever proposed this amendment, if we could see what you're actually amending, it's small.
Yeah. And we do have Dr. Lindstrom on the Zoom and Mr. Rayel.
Good evening, Chair Barboa, Vice Chair Jackson. The numbers that you see reflected here before you are incorporating two different items. I'll speak on behalf of the City of Albuquerque and then turn it over to Dr. Lindstrom. Prior to the last LGCC meeting, the City of Albuquerque provided an updated proposal for utilizing the opioid settlement funds, and that was taken into account based off of the working group meetings. So we removed, for example, $900,000 line item for supplying naloxone through vending machines based off of the working group. And then also in consultation with our departments, we revised our proposal, and those numbers are reflected here. So prior to last week's LGCC meeting, the city submitted our updated proposals with the accurate numbers. And so this is containing those numbers aligned with Bernalillo County. And I'm not quite sure exactly the specifics that Bernalillo County has updated.
Okay, so.
Madam Chair, do you want me to go ahead?
Go ahead, Dr. Lindstrom, and then we'll ask, we might have more questions.
Yeah, my response for Bernalillo County is very similar to the city's. The guidance document had removed the vending machines as a priority tactic, if you will. And so we removed the purchasing of vending machines and the costs associated with it. And in addition to that, we had two items in terms of evidence-based practices for the Albuquerque public schools. And given that it was clear that that APS wanted to give priority to Crossroads, we removed those two items as well.
Thank you so much for that clarity. Vice Chair Jackson, did you have another question?
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. So I'm just trying to quickly compare. So I see that the county work plan to the documents that we had in our packet, as opposed to the amendment, looks like there's a $4 million increase in the total. And then for the city work plan, there's a $7 million increase in the funding. So I'm quickly, unless you can point to me, where did that $7 million increase come from? Can you, or should I just?
Sure.
Compare?
I think they can answer your question.
Chair Barboa, Vice Chair Jackson. So it's kind of spread throughout. Again, after the last LGCC working group discussions and in consultation with our department heads who would be implementing the proposed programs, we went back and identified what needed to be modified. So you'll see general increases to our recommendation number 15, leveraging the sobering center, that increased by approximately $3.2 million. You will also see the removal previously under recommendation number 19, naloxone access expansion. We removed $990,000 from that section. For recommendation 23, community-based treatment and access quality, we reduced the community-oriented recovery program by $360,000. And we also reduced under the same recommendation by $20,000 approximately training for EMT and paramedic personnel for medication for opioid use disorder. You will also see a change in our recovery housing has increased by about $5 million. Number 3, which is to expand recovery housing options. Under recommendation 27, under peer support expansion, that amount decreased by approximately 1.1 million. Under recommendation 16, comprehensive education, we increased number 4, which is restorative justice program, by about 100,000. We increased by 25,000, number 5, integrate prevention curricula throughout our community and multi-gen centers. And we also added in, based off of the working document and guidelines, a $300,000 line item for culturally relevant opioid prevention and education. I believe I covered.
Thank you. I appreciate you pointing that out. So it seems like the biggest increase was the $5 million addition to recovery housing options, about $5 million there.
Chair Barboa, Vice Chair Jackson, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Commissioner Olivas.
And apologies, Madam Chair, we're trying to bring up the spreadsheet on the
Yeah,
laptop.
I went to copy Exhibit D.
So I think I would actually say that we should just strike this work plan entirely from the whole document, because I don't actually think these numbers don't add up. I mean, so for example, Bernco has about 20 million in the bank right now, somewhere in that range. We've proposed to put 10 million aside for the capital fund, 2 million for the sustainability fund, that's 12 million, and then 1.8 million for APS. So rounding numbers, right, that leaves the county with about 6 million. And that's 6 million, and then over the next 3 years, because this is a 3-year plan, I believe we'll get about 2 million per year. Again, I'm doing a lot of fast math in my head here, but I think that's about 12 million that we would have to program. And this is programming 20 million. So I'm just sticking to the Bernalillo County side because I know our numbers a little bit better. So that number doesn't work. And that's fine. I think that all of this is included in the framework that we have set out, you know, the prevention and community revitalization and the treatment and intervention. So I think that all these things that are suggested in here can still be part of that conversation for the respective entities to figure out sort of how to slice that up. But I think given that the numbers don't add up, it's very confusing to even have these in there because they don't add up, and I do not want us to go through the exercise of trying to balance the books right here. And I think that our staff on both sides can do that. So I would not support this amendment, and in fact, I would, depending on how this goes, I would support another amendment to just strike this exhibit entirely so that it just clears this up, and I don't think that we need to go into this kind of detail at this point in time. Thank you, Madam Chair.
We'll stay on this amendment. I have, and I just want to remind folks, you've already said it, right? But that any of this is an exhibit, so this isn't written into the policy guidance that we're passing, but it is part of a whole packet and explained as an exhibit, like an addendum to the packet, to the policy, and that our entities will still have to go through procurement, like all those legal options that we still have to go through. So I had Councilor Champagne, then Councilor Rogers, then Councilor Feeblecourt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And again, just being thrown in the mix of this, you guys have worked out a lot of details before I got here, and this being my second meeting. So I can kind of just go off of what's being thrown at me right now, but have I heard you correctly? We're adding 5 million to expand recovery housing? Is that correct?
Chair Balboa, Councilor Champagne. Yes, that is correct. From our last go-around when we were first putting these proposals together, Chair Balboa, may I give a little bit of historical context
yes.
to Councilor Champagne? So this resulted out of, in fact, the preliminary proposal was provided to the LGCC, I believe, at the December 12th meeting, where we began to whittle down from 28 recommendations that were provided by Vital Strategies to 7 or 8. We provided both Dr. Lindstrom and myself provided a narrative of how we would utilize these funds. And at that time, we provided the work plan that predates this. So I had the numbers that predate this. Since then, we continued working with the subgroup, the working group, where we began to receive more direction on limitation and use on funds, allocation strategies. And so this, to Commissioner Olivas's point, doesn't add up on the math, but this is the work that our department and experts within the city have recommended on how to utilize the opioid funds. So we do find an issue with currently, as the implementation plan is proposed for the city, we have approximately $21.5 million available for appropriation. The actions taken as currently stands would limit the city to about $4 million. In addition to that, it would limit us to only utilize $2.3 million in recurring funding, so leaving us with very little room to implement any programs.
Any further questions, Councilor Champagne?
No, Madam Chair, not at this time.
Thank you, Councilor Rogers and Councilor Peoples-Court.
Thank you. I just wanted to remind us that these are not what we are spending the money on, right? None of this body doesn't decide what the county gives out and what the city gives out. So the reason we added them as exhibits where they are examples of what the funding can be spent on. So I would not say we should strike any of the work that people have done to say, here's what we think we should spend this funding on. Because all of this is just exhibits so that we have some idea. And the ask of each of the entities was, we narrowed it down to the 8. Then what are you already doing within the city, the county, and APS that fit into these 8 categories? And that's how we ended up with these lists from all 3 entities of what are you already doing that we can expand to save lives. And that's how we arrived at these exhibits. So it's really just informational so that we know when we go back to our entities to actually appropriate this money, what's already being done that we can build capacity on.
Thank you, Councilor Peoples-Court.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the detail here, but I am very concerned because if this is attached to the document that we've been working on, it clearly states that this is the work plan. It's at the top of the document. And work plan means that that's the plan for the work that's going to be coming. And these numbers are not possible if we are going to pass the document that we've all been working on since December or November or whenever that was. It's clearly by, 5-fold more than will be available for these projects. And so I would agree that it should be struck, but if it's not struck, it should at least say examples, not work plan, because there is absolutely no way that these projects at these levels of funding can be done, period, specifically, or even more so, with the document that we've all been agreeing to since November. So I do have quite a bit of concern that the city and county folks are just continuing on the path that they had chosen originally, and they are not taking into account what this body has determined is important for the community. Nowhere on this work plan, which means something to me, is the community grants. Nowhere on this work plan is the APS funding. Nowhere on this work plan are a lot of the things that we've all agreed to thus far. And so if this is attached, it should be defined as an example with very clear communication that this is not to the dollar amount what we're going to do with these funds, or else what was the point of the point of our exercise of going through all of these months of discussion.
Thank you. Did you want to, thank you, Counselor Feeble-Corn. If there is, I just want to make a comment myself that I think I really like to see this because it gives us an idea about what our experts are thinking and envisioning. I think it's greater transparency. I am open to an amendment to Nate retitle this if that feels like, and I just want to remind, like Counselor Rogers already sort of told us, that these are going to go back to our bodies, right? They're gonna, you'll get to vote on, and again, when these monies start moving out, our bodies, the city and the county at least, will get to vote as they move out of our work. Is there any other discussion? Yes, Counselor Rogers?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would agree with Councilor Feeble-Corn. Maybe for all of the exhibits, we say proposed or drafts or examples for all across the board, so that it's that way for all of the exhibits that we have. Of course, outside of Vital Strategies report. But what we have from, that would be Exhibit D, Exhibit F, and I think is Exhibit E and F. I think F is already titled examples. But if people would be open to that, we would just put examples on all of the exhibits that are appropriate.
Can I have a second? That was yours.
Oh, sorry.
I'm assuming, would you like to move?
Oh, thank you. I forgot to make an official motion to amend our exhibits. Exhibit D, E, to match Exhibit F, that these are examples of what the funding could be spent on.
Is there, yes, Ken, legal?
And it may also be clarifying to amend the document where it says whereas.
Okay.
And to be example, because it already says whereas detailed example projects for F, but for E and D, it doesn't say that in the whereas on the document you're.
Oh.
Perfect.
So in the document, please, legal, in the actual, or, strategic, policy guide for strategic implementation, wherever it says exhibit, we should say as attached example exhibit A or example exhibit B. Is that what what you would suggest?
So if you look at F, I think you already have detailed example projects. So you go to Exhibit E, which is right above it in the whereas, and you could say funding, let's see, example funding proposal. If the word example is what you'd like to add, and then you can do it with regard to the work plan. Exhibit D, example, settlement fund example work plan. Just add the word example.
Thank you. Yes, Councilor Rogers?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think to keep the uniformity of just match what we have on, so each line will say whereas for on page 1, the county prepared a detailed example detailed example projects. And then the same for the next line, whereas APS has prepared example projects.
Okay, so I think that may be the motion, that wherever it says, do you have a motion you want to share, Councilor Rogers?
Yes, I'll start again. So we are making a motion to amend page 1, the whereas statements, where it says, whereas the county prepared a Bernalillo City ABQ opioid settlement fund detailed example.
Which is attached
Which is attached. And then the next line would say, whereas Albuquerque Public Schools prepared a detailed example of projects.
Detailed report of substance.
And then keep the rest. And it would just match for all 3. And then we can relabel the title of each of those exhibits to include detailed example of projects.
Maybe the one
I
above
second
that. The city, whereas the city prepared a report.
Well, this, Madam Chair, this is Vital Strategies report that we've been working on, so I don't think that there's
There
any
is a
detailed.
city one though, that's right before that, right after that, vital strategy.
Oh, Exhibit C. But Exhibit C is,
Oh, Courtney.
is the Vital Strategies document.
Okay.
It's not? Oh. Sorry, I'm being told that C in our packets is not Vital Strategies. Okay.
So we have, let's get clarity on that. On page 1, as a city report, prepared a report entitled Utilizing Opioid Settlement Funds, Proposals in Response to Vital Strategies Recommendation, presented to the Local Governing Coordinating Commission, which is attached as Exhibit C. Exhibit C. My goodness. Exhibit C is the City of Albuquerque proposal on 3-4. It has an executive summary. It's in your packets. It talks about, it has some narrative. So we're just naming that this is a detailed example is what we're hoping. So I would that feel friendly to you to add detailed example to also the cities?
Yes, for uniformity and fairness across the board, yes.
Okay, I will second that. Any further discussion?
Champagne.
Yes, Councilor Champagne.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I had to step out to use the restroom real quick, but I'm kind of I'm trying to play catch up on this. What's the purpose of this committee? And again, I'm like the second day into this, and I'm trying to understand, it's like a subcommittee. We're supposed to be doing the legwork of deciding where this money should be gone, or what programs it should go to?
Yes.
And so now we're getting rid of work plan, doing what we suggest and what this committee is supposed to collaborate with, and saying, here's just an example. So we're gonna send this off to council or commission, and then they're gonna go through it all again, because this is just a suggestion, an example? So were we really doing the work that we should be doing, or are we just pushing this down so that the council and the commission decide later on, and then spend hours at a meeting?
Yes, thank you. We met since November in a subcommittee group to be able to hash out. There was a bunch more recommendations. The Vital Strategies full recommendations is in your packet. And so there are a number of strategies there. With our limited 150 million, we're already struggling to make sure we can fund the things we're finding most important. That subcommittee worked to get down to 8 categories that we would focus on. We heard a bunch of presentations. We heard from our experts at the city and county and APS. And these are our recommendations moving forward. Agree that these are recommendations and that our city and county, because we cannot, there's nowhere to put all the funding in one place. The city has hold of the money you've gotten, the county has money. This is our agreement that we're gonna work collaboratively together. You asked what the purpose of this. For my 2 cents, we could talk more about the overall big purpose of LGCC and when it derived. That's also on the website. But for the purpose of pulling these fundings out to speak specifically was to make sure that we're collaborating, to make sure that we can see. Part of this is also a public dashboard that we'll have to have that the community asked for. We held a number of town halls, I think spoke with thousands of stakeholders and individuals across the county and city. And we want to be as transparent as possible to show both how we're thinking of these dollars, and we are giving recommendations. I think the parts that can stick is that we're saying 40% here, 60% there. Here's some of our recommendations. So when it comes before you, hopefully, at the city, hopefully you can say, hey, this is exactly what we wanted, or if it's off a little bit, then you can also hold them to what we decided at this government council, coordinated. The name of is Local Government Coordinating Commission.
And the collaboration, Madam Chair, is, and if I'm looking at this correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, if this is even supposed to happen, Bernco is gonna put in 20 million and the city's putting in 27 million.
This, again, is the items that the city and county, in their expertise, submitted, and they want to be transparent and show us what their recommendations of moving forward. Again, there's some things, once we pass the final document, then hopefully they'll adhere to our recommendations of the things that we have carved out ahead of time. And I hope that that we will respectively hold them to those at our bodies. Yes,
Thank you, Madam Chair.
thank you. Counselor Rogers, then Counselor Feeblecourt.
Sure, and just to add, Counselor Champagne, the amounts are just based on what's in hand on both, in both entities. The full the dispersion schedule for each entity we have, so we know each year who's getting what. And these numbers were based on what each entity has in hand.
And they still have to be voted on. Any further discussion? Yes, Council Feeblecourt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So again, these numbers do not represent what we have in hand, and they do not represent what this body has determined would be appropriate uses of these funds. And I think the confusion on our board even says that this is confusing to the public. It's going to be confusing. We have documents that are called work plans. I know we just changed it to examples, but have specific dollar amounts that do not add up to what we have in hand. And in my mind, what we've been working on since November was the first couple of pages of this document. That is a document that says we're going to spend 40% of our funds on prevention, 60% on treatment. There's some guidelines and some guardrails for how those funds are to be spent. That's the work of this committee. I do not believe that these numbers add up. I do not believe that we should be including them in a document that's sent to our respective bodies for approval because it's confusing to us. Imagine how confusing it is to the public.
Would you like to add a motion?
Madam Chair, I'd make a motion that we delete all the attachments and we just have the document that we have all agreed upon go out of this body to our respective bodies for approval.
Have a second? Madam Shanty, please call the roll. Second by Counselor Champagne. Please call the roll.
Madam Chair.
Discussion.
Point of order real quick. So I thought we were on an amendment.
Oh, were we? Yes, we were.
So are we amending the amendment or are we going to deal
No,
with the first?
we are
okay.
not.
Just
Thank you.
making sure. Thank you.
Thank you. We will get to your amendment in a minute. Point of order. So we will do, there's not any other further discussion? Madam Shanty, please call the roll call on the original amendment that adds exhibit as a detailed, that adds detailed example before any of the exhibits.
Yes, Madam Chair. Madam Chair Barboa,
Yes.
Commissioner Benson,
Yes.
Commissioner Olivas,
No.
Councillor Rogers,
Yes?
Councillor Feeblecorn,
Yes.
Councillor Champagne,
No.
Councillor Grout,
No.
Dr. Sengel,
Yes.
Vice Chair Courtney Jackson,
No.
APS member Heather Benavides,
No.
Thank you. That's a
it's 5-5.
5-5. That does not pass.
It's 5-5.
Great, so that does not pass. Now, do we have another amendment? Any other discussion or amendment? Want to move your previous amendment?
Yes, Madam Chair, I make a motion to strike all of the attachments and move the base document only forward to our two bodies for consideration.
Councilor Champagne, would you like to second again?
I would like to second again, ma'am.
Thank you. Any discussion? Yes, I don't call you counsel. Director Sengel.
Thank you, Chair Barboa. I appreciate the opportunity. Just real quickly, I think that it's unfortunate that so much work has been put in by the staff of both of the county and the city, as well as APS putting forward their examples. The work that was done by all of these teams was at the direction of this commission to think about the work that could be done through the bodies and through the work of the professionals that participated for the 18 months that Vital Strategies worked with the community. They participated with the practitioners, they participated with the experts. And I think to scrap all of that work and it not be part of the work that goes forward to the two bodies for them to have available to them to consider and review after the amount of work that has been done would be incredibly unfortunate. I think we owe it to the professionals that did this work, the opportunity to have that work viewed by the elected bodies.
Thank you, Ms. Single. And I'll just comment that I agree. I think for transparency, I feel like we got to remember we do have the power of decision making when it comes to our bodies, and I like for public transparency. That'll be mine. Yes, Councilor Rogers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I echo then all of the work, all the nights we spent in these meetings will be for nothing. And I think it's transparent to, even if we always knew that. We've been looking at these exhibits for several months now. We all knew that this is not exactly what's going to be funded by each entity. We knew that the numbers were not what we were going to be voting on in our respective bodies. But to know, and so our other counselors on city council will know, what is the administration thinking? Like, we know, it's right here. And we can then go back to our body and say yes or no to whatever things that are on this list or things that we think are important as a body. Same for APS and same for county. I also would hate to see APS's whole work and them be relegated to a sentence in the first document, because that's what we would be doing by taking out all of these exhibits. All that we have is one sentence for APS naming their programs, but it doesn't explain what the programs are, doesn't explain what we heard today from the folks that are here. And so I would say I would not be supportive of removing the exhibits because they are just that, examples.
Madam Chair.
Yes. Commissioner Olivas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm wondering if Councillor Feeble-Corn would consider a modification a little bit of her amendment that would remove reference and would remove exhibits C, D, and F. Because I do think we want to keep Exhibit B in there. That is the Vital Strategies report. And I do think that Exhibit E highlights what is further referenced in the document with regards to APS. The issue that I have, that I think we're all seeing here with C, D, and F, is that they are somewhat or greatly inconsistent with the dollar values that we actually have available to us as entities, and I'm concerned that that will cause great confusion as these move to our respective bodies. And so I think that leaving in the things that are, in my mind, very clear would be helpful, and the things that are not probably don't belong in the final work product. So I would ask it.
Okay, Chair Olivas, I guess that was a
Thank you, Madam Chair.
to your amendment.
Yes, I'm amenable to that amendment. Well, I'll do a close in a minute, but I'm open to that amendment if my second would agree to that.
Chair, Councilor Champagne.
Madam Chair, I can second it again, yeah. I'm open to it.
Okay, as I understand, we have an amendment with a second that removes only items
C, D, F.
C, D, and F. And now we're open for discussion.
Thank you.
Councilor Rogers.
Yeah, I think, Madam Chair, for fairness, like the numbers that we have in here for APS is not final, because each entity has to vote on what we're each giving APS. So those totals are in that. It's not fair to just leave one and not all the others. Either we take them all out or we leave them all in. It's not fair to just leave one or the other for whatever feelings we have about the plans. They are just, or examples. They are just that, examples. And we don't even know that that's what we're actually going to vote on for APS as far as amounts. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any further discussion? Okay, Sciente, please call the roll call vote.
Madam
Yes.
Chair, do I not get to close on my amendment?
Oh, yes, go.
Thank
Councilor
you.
Leopold.
So I just, we heard that it was unfortunate that these would be taken out. And I just have to say that what's unfortunate is that we have been meeting for months and months and months, and we still don't have plans that match the dollar amounts that we've directed so far. And so I do think that's unfortunate. And I think that this process could have been finished a lot sooner had we had staff that was willing to work with us to come up with plans that matched the documents that we were developing as a committee. Again, there are a lot of things in the city's work plan that I like, but they all can't be funded with the funds that we have, and including them is very confusing to people. I think that the idea that would be for nothing if we took these out is really sad to think, because if you look at the first pages of this document, that's where the guardrails are. That's where the work of this committee came to fruition. We've determined the percentages that were for prevention and for treatment. We've determined what those guardrails are, what can be spent on, what it can't be spent on. That is an appropriator's job. Going down to the dollar amount of every single line item that the city wants to spend money on that doesn't actually total the amount that is available is not our job. Our job is to provide those guardrails to make sure that our intent is clear, and I think our intent is clear in the first several pages of this document. I agree with Commissioner Olivas that leaving, the APS example in, leaving some of the other examples, the PB&J example, some of those are clearly examples, but they do not go down to the level that some of these other documents do that clearly states that is what will be done with these funds. And I just worry that we continue to have these documents included, we continue to have them out there, and the public continually calls me and says, I saw in the documents that were posted that we're going to spend blank dollars on this. Why are you spending that much on this? And I have to say, no, that's supposed to be an example. That's not what we're spending blank dollars on. And if I can't figure out how those dollars match up with what the available funding is, how is the public supposed to match those two things up? I think it's important that we be transparent, that we say, here are the guardrails that we have determined as a body that we're going to take to our respective bodies for approval. But I do not approve, and I would not vote to approve the work plan from the city that has $27 million when we have about $4 million available. So with that, I urge your support.
I would like, from that, could I enter some more discussion?
Madam Chair, I thought close was close.
Okay. Sure. I would like to also, I think something that we might be able to get, and I'll allow you to close again, is if we actually just remove project cost from this document. Then the numbers are gone. We get to see what our leadership is thinking. So would that be amendable to you? No?
I mean, I've made my amendment proposal, Madam Chair, but everybody else has an opportunity to propose whatever they would like. But I would like a vote on mine.
Okay. We will go to roll call, Sciente.
Yes, Madam Chair. Madam Chair Barboa.
No.
Commissioner Benson.
No.
Commissioner Olivas.
Yes.
Councillor Rogers.
No.
Councillor Fivelcorn.
Yes.
Councillor Champagne.
Yes.
Councillor Grau.
Yes.
Dr. Sengel.
No.
Madam Vice Chair Courtney Jackson.
Yes.
APS member Heather Benavides.
Yes.
Madam so called.
I think that passes on a 6-4, is that correct? Just want to make sure.
6-3. Passes on a 6-3.
Thank you. Passes on a 6-3.
6-4.
6-4.
3-4.
6-4.
Yes. Thank you. Okay, we have any other discussion, amendments? I've been asked to carry one more amendment that I'll present to you today. Do we have copies? Yes. Do we have copies of this? No.
Yeah.
Can we?
They have the other format.
Okay. A yellow form?
No, the one that matches Counselor Rogers.
Oh, okay. People do have the amendment in front. In front of them. I move to amend the implementation plan, section 8, APS funding by deleting the current language. The LGCC recommends both the County of Bernalillo and the City of Albuquerque contribute 1.8 million each in the first year and 1.5 million each for the second and third years to Albuquerque Public Schools, Crossroads, and other related prevention intervention programs. And replace with the LGCC recommends both the County of Bernalillo and the City of Albuquerque contribute a shared amount of settlement funds to equally match what APS is currently budgeting for the Crossroads Program Prevention Intervention Programs in high school for the purpose of expanding into middle school programming not to exceed 1.2 million per year for the first 3 years from the settlement funds. Do I have a second? Councilor Rogers, second. Discussion. Yes, Councilor Champagne.
Madam Chair, I'd just like some clarification on why we were reducing it. And we just voted to this last meeting, correct? So what's the motivation on the reduction?
Yes, I was asked to carry this because I think some members feel like there is we're restricting too much. Again, like the conversation we've already had, putting numbers when it's still going to go back to our board is should be the decision of each body. But that is up for this vote.
Just a couple other questions, then, Madam Chair, if you don't mind.
Yes.
So the reduction is based on, okay, and it's a suggestion.
Again, which is just a suggestion.
And it says for the first 3 years, but does it clarify anything after that? There's no stipulation of,
Their original request was for 3 years, but at the 1.8 million in each for the first year by each entity and 1.5 million for the second and third from each entity. And the replacement says 1.2 million, not to exceed 1.2 million
for the
from
first,
both entities.
from the first 3 years.
For the
but
first
doesn't-
3 years. So they didn't ask for funding beyond the 3 years
So we don't need to-
originally?
Okay, Madam Chair, then we don't need to add in that it's only a 3-year allocation. There isn't an end date that we need to point out for a miscommunication or misunderstanding.
I think there is if I heard your question right, expanding into middle school program not to exceed 1.2 million per year for the first 3 years from the settlement funds.
Okay, so that must be, okay.
That would start this, once we pass this, would I think start the first year.
Madam Chair, can I get just a brief history again? And again, I'm trying to play catch up. This was a lawsuit, correct? And then.
Correct.
And this was a settlement of the lawsuit.
Correct.
And again, I'm trying to understand this and the history of it and not poke holes at who gets what or where it's going to go or what it is. But I was told that APS had written out and decided not to be on that lawsuit. Is that correct?
I do not know. I think that's a good question for APS.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
I was advised, because I'm trying to gain history on this, that APS decided to opt out of the lawsuit, and it was just the city and the county that went into the lawsuit, and APS decided to stay out of it.
I'm going to defer to City Councilor Ken Martinez.
APS did opt into the suit, and they did sign off on the settlement. The national suit was based upon litigating communities, and that included the city and the county. But the APS basically was covered under the city and county litigation. And then we had to go, once we settled the suits, our attorneys was Luis Robles, we had to go to APS and ask for their permission to settle. So they're also settlers, although there's not a direct allocation of money to them, because in essence, it was covered under the total settlement. between the city and the county. I hope I'm saying that right, but APS did sign off on this lawsuit.
Okay, and you said they opted, okay.
They opted in, they had to sign off on it because part of the settlement of lawsuit, and Madam Chair, excuse me, was the, what they call global peace. And in other words, here's the litigants. If we're gonna settle this case on a county, city, state, and national basis, we wanna make sure we're settling as to anyone that could possibly sue us, and APS was included in that settlement process. So they did have to sign off, and we worked with APS's counsel to get them to sign off on the settlement.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes, is that all, Counselor Champagne?
That is for now. I'm formulating another one, but give me some
Thank
time.
you. Yes,
Thank you.
Dr. Single. Go ahead, Dr.
If I may, Council, thank you, Commissioner. I just wanted for clarification, Mr., my brain right now, I'm losing all names, Mr. Martinez. My understanding was that that APS signed on for the state to represent them. I thought that was where
Can
they.
you pull the mic
they were
closer?
in-
I'm a little deaf.
Yep. APS signed into this settlement. So we had the county being represented and the city being represented and the state being represented. There were settlements that were done on a case-by-case basis, and actually Walgreens was actually tried in Santa Fe. So we're one of the few places where a case was actually tried. And it all went into a multi-district litigation warehouse, so to speak. And in order to settle the cases, you had to have opt-in by municipalities, counties, and by APS in this community. So APS did opt in and agree to the settlement, although at the time they do it, they knew they were getting no direct allocation of funds, but they understood it was important for the community that they be part of the settlers. So they did settle into it. That's correct.
Thank you, and I'm sorry to be obtuse in this, I don't mean to be, but my understanding was that the state represented them in that, and not the city or the county, but they were represented by the state in that settlement.
I could probably give you a more correct answer, and I can call our attorney, Mr. Robles, but basically, they agreed to our settlement. In other words, they agreed to be party to the settlement in this area. So they weren't necessarily represented by the state, but there was a sign-off where you would have the state agreeing to the settlement, the city agreeing to the settlement, and the county agreeing. And we all had to agree amongst ourselves, state, city, and county, would we settle and what would be the allocation of that settlement? And then APS had to agree to the settlement as well, knowing that they were not going to get a direct allocation necessarily. So they weren't opting out, but they were agreeing to the settlement as being part of the settlers for the purpose of global peace on it. So, and knowing that we would all be in this process. So they did sign off on the settlement.
Yes, Counselor Champagne?
And then just a follow-up question on that, since we're deciding and allocating money to APS, is state doing the same? Are they allocating money to APS of their settlement fund?
Is there anyone?
I'm not sure. I don't know. We could ask APS that question. I don't believe so. I believe that they were covered in our group here. I know that our attorney had met with their attorney, and I'm sure the city attorney as well, and they all worked together to come to this global settlement of our communities here. There is opportunities still open for collaboration between the state and any settling entity for collaboration in kind of regional settlements or matching dollars and things of that nature. And that's still out there and still a possibility.
Madam Chair, thank you again. Like I said, I don't know the history of it, and I seem to get stuck on every committee. I think I'm on 7 this year, so to try to understand it all and catch up is an undertaking. So I appreciate the leeway in trying to figure out the history.
Thank you so much. I have Counselor Rogers, then Commissioner Olivas, and Council Feeblecourt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think that's an important thing to get an answer on is there going to be a state allocation to APS of their dollars? So if there's a way we could find that out, that would be great.
Sorry, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Counselor Rogers, I am texting with our attorney right now to try to find out.
Thank you, Vice Chair Jackson. Yes, Mr. Rayel.
Madam Chair, I may be able to give a little bit of clarification, and obviously Mr. Martinez can correct me if I'm wrong. The overall global settlement had a 45 split between the county, local governments and the state of New Mexico. The state of New Mexico had 45% of the settlement share. What the state of New Mexico decided to do with that fund was to create two separate funds. One is called the Opioid Restricted Fund, which is housed with the State Investment Council for long-term investment. And they also created, I think it's called the Opioid Crisis Recovery Fund, that is housed in the State Treasurer's Office, and that is subject to legislative appropriation. I believe they have 5% of the annual portfolio value is transferred on an annual basis from the restricted use fund to the recovery fund for legislative appropriation.
And do you know, Mr. Rayel, if that anyone's eligible? We don't know that necessarily the criteria to be eligible for those funds are yet.
Madam Chair, unless the legislature provides additional criteria, the criteria that's set forth within the allocation agreement and the acceptable uses under Exhibit E of the settlement agreement is what would be the guiding principles, as well as state statute, wherein they created the Opioid Crisis Recovery Fund. But I believe it's up to anybody who can, lobby their specific legislature to access those funds.
Thank you, Dr. Rayel. Yes, Commissioner Olivas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I really vehemently oppose this amendment because what we are proposing to do with this is really to, well, we're not even proposing what this allocation of resources, because we're taking money out of APS, but we're not actually proposing what this would go into. So that's the first problem, is we're just taking money and saying they don't need it. And we're literally taking this away from school kids and families in our community. And I think the weakest link in our whole system today is prevention. We have a lot of problems. Treatment is not great, housing is not great, but we are working towards better resourcing those areas. We are bringing things online. And from day one with former Chair Rogers in the subcommittee, we have struggled to articulate what is prevention, what are real programs that do prevention. And our respective staffs did their very best to try and come up with some ideas for prevention. And I'm not saying those were bad ideas, they were good ideas too. But at the end of the day, we struggled to articulate what is prevention and how do we do it, and how do we do it in a meaningful way. And I think we heard from people that are actually doing this today, and we've heard from them multiple times, including last year before some of our members were on board. We've really gotten a good articulation of what that program is, what those resources will do, how those will allow the expansion of this programming into middle schools, which I think is a critical age when you now hear that you have youth using at 9, 8 years old. That's a really good place to start, not to start using at that age, but a really good place to start preventing, to start stopping the cycle before we have to come and do multi-million-dollar treatment centers and recovery housing and supportive housing that some of these people have to live in their entire life. So I think this is a great investment. I think we should stick with the original agreement that we had. It was based on, a very clear figure that was presented to us. I don't think that we should shortchange this program on a whim and a promise that maybe the state will come through with money. That is not a good strategy, and the legislative session is almost over. I'm not aware of anything that is actually doing this year in the session. So we would essentially be shortchanging this program and delaying any action on this until at least next year. And it may end up back before us anyway. So I really would advocate that we stick with the original figure that we had. I think that it was based on fully funding the program, and I don't want to see us shortchange that. I realize that APS has a bigger budget than both of our respective entities, but that budget is largely devoted towards educating youth. That is their job, to provide an education. Our school systems were never designed in the 1800s or whatever, to provide healthcare and mental health services. And they are doing that. They've stepped up and done that with, by shoestringing it and bootstrapping it. And so you're being asked for help. We're being presented with a very well-articulated program, and I think we should support that. So I will not be supporting this amendment, and I do think that we should continue with the original allocation and continue to fight for that in our respective council and commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lewis. Councilor Feeble-Klein.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That's hard to follow, but I will. I think I really appreciate the conversation around kind of what state funding is going towards and what our funding is going towards. But I do want to just point out that these funds that came to Albuquerque and Bernalillo County were for helping our community. And when we went out for, last year we had a series of community meetings where folks got to come and tell us what was important to them. And at the one that I went to, every single person said we want prevention and we want help for kids to not get addicted. And I think that Crossroads is a really great example of how to do that in our community. And for me, one of the most important things about this opioid settlement funds is that we will see some difference. It is not going to be 18 years down the road and we're like, yeah, what did we do? What happened? We have a finite 3-year period where we can fully fund this really incredible program in our public schools. And wouldn't it be neat in 15 years to look back and say, after those 3 years, we really saw a dramatic reduction in the number of kids that were becoming addicted. We really saw an impact for our community. And that's what this is all about. That's why we originally did this joint planning process, so that we could come up with ideas and proposals that really impacted our community. And this is one of them. I will also just quickly say that, it's a personal pet peeve of mine. We voted for this at the last meeting. We've now created trust with community, that they believe that that's what's going to be in this document. And taking it away after one meeting, I know that we're politicians and we do that a lot, but we shouldn't. We should not be disingenuous to the people of Albuquerque and Bernalillo County. I think it was clear from the last meeting that this had a lot of support, and I think it should continue to have support tonight.
Councilor Feeble-Klein, Councilor Rogers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm horrible at math, so I'm just trying to, I remember the conversation around this last meeting, and the original language would basically amount to $9 million. 9.2. So this would be we're going from 9 to 3.6 total? Yes. Okay, thank you.
Yes, Councilor Jackson, Vice Chair Jackson.
Thank you. I am not going to repeat what Commissioner Olivas, Councilor Feeble-Klein have already said, because they have made an excellent argument in support of APS. What I would like to say again is that this was discussed at length at the last meeting, and I think that there was some discussion about the dynamics of this Crossroads program. It has been in existence since 1990. It has been proven to affect prevention and intervention for our kids. We are having discussions about how we are going to better our community, better our city, better our county, and where that starts is with our students. We've shown up. We put out a call. We said, please let us know how important this is to us as a community. And we have the data to prove. I think one of the, if you'll give me a sec to pull up, one of the documents that I have says that with the use of the prevention or the Crossroads program, 67% of the students who completed intervention did not reoffend. 67%. So do we want to have a proven program, a proven proven ability to make to help our students, to help our kids actually stop, like prevent. This is, I realize we deal in big numbers these days. 9.6 million over 3 years is not a lot to ask to get a 67% reduction in reoffensive for our students. So I will also not support this amendment. I hate to be Whitney Houston here, but let's do it for our kids. They are our future.
Thank you, Vice Chair Jackson. Any other comments? I wanted to make a quick comment. I agree with everything that's been said. I also know, and I feel regret that folks feel they don't understand what prevention is, right? Like true prevention would mean that our communities, especially my community that overlaps completely, District 6 is, City Council District is that 40% of overdoses happen in my district. So when, and I know the percentage of folks that get kicked out of schools and are struggling to get into charter schools, or they've been expelled and they can't get into anywhere. So I just want to remind us too that we run community centers, we run food programs in the summers. Those are all like truly prevention because we're providing that thing before we get there, right? And so I'm not arguing against the value at all of our Crossroads program. And truly, I'll just say for myself, I believe in the Crossroads program. I don't always believe in our government, including APS, to do the thing that they need to do. So I hope that folks hear that part. But I think we're clear in here. And so I just wanted to make sure that we do know that the county and city, because it was a discussion last time as if APS was the only place, and it's not. And I actually think the county is probably the most responsible, or should be, for that like social safety net that catches those that fall through our APS cracks, through all the different cracks that let our students, mostly students of color, largely students that live in my district, fall through those cracks. So I just want to name that those things are happening. And if there's not any further discussion, we can move to a roll call vote.
Yes, Madam Chair.
And I'll return, so that, just to make sure, sorry, that we all understand what we're voting on after the robust discussion, that we're voting on changing the language around the amount of money that we're all recommending, and we'll still have to go get voted back from, you have the amendment in front of you, but this will amend the amount and provide a match rather than an amount that was previously discussed. Thank you. Roll call vote.
Madam Chair Barboa,
Yes.
Commissioner Benson, Commissioner Olivas,
No.
Councillor Rogers,
No.
Councillor Fiddlecorn,
No.
Councillor Champagne,
No.
Councillor Grout,
No.
Dr. Singhal,
Yes.
Madam Vice Chair Courtney Jackson,
No.
APS member Heather Benavides,
No.
so called.
Thank you.
I apologize, Madam Chair. I missed the mute button. My vote was no.
So recorded, Commissioner Benson. Thank you. That falls on a 8-2 vote. Moving forward. Great. Thank you for the discussion. So now I believe we have, if there is no other further amendments, am I missing anyone? Councillor Fiebelkorn.
Madam Chair, I don't have amendments, but I do have a couple of questions around the final document. Do you want to do those now, or are we going to more amendments?
Let me make sure, is there any further discussion, amendments, suggestions for the document before we close out? No? Yes, Samantha, Dr. Singhal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't know, I don't want to interrupt Councillor Fiebelkorn, so
I
I'm
think
not
she was
sure.
gonna
I think mine are
close.
points of discussion as well, so I don't know.
Why don't you go? Madam Chair, I had just had a chance to look at the final document versus the draft document that we had all agreed on in the subcommittee. And I have a few places that they don't match, and I don't know the will of the committee. So do you want to go through yours and then I can go through mine, if that's okay? Okay, you want me to do mine? Okay. So just a couple questions and for clarification. Under section 3, community outreach, in the original document that we had agreed to in the subcommittee, it had 4 things under the LGC recommends the following opportunities for ongoing public forums. I see now in the final version, we have added APS to this list, and I don't believe I ever heard APS say that they wanted to be added to this list. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Counselor Rogers?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Counselor Feeblecorn. We went through the document because there were several places now that APS is a voting member that we added them in just like the other bodies. So if they're receiving the money, they should do exactly what the other entities are doing, especially with our kids, doing some focus groups with parents and kids on how they can better the program and get it. So that was just strictly because we're adding APS. We had forgotten APS in a lot of spaces, and that was one of them.
So thank you for that. I was just, can we ask APS if holding ongoing public forums and getting community feedback is something that you have the bandwidth to do? Okay.
And Councilor Beagle,
saw
it was
yes.
in their write-up, just for clarification. It was also in their write-up that they already do this. So so that's my bad for not double checking with APS before doing that, but it was in their write-up that they already do it. So I took the liberty to add them as their voting members.
Thank you. And then I had a question under tribal sovereignty. We had originally said that we were going to actively solicit feedback from and engage tribal communities. And I see now that it says tribal communities and urban tribal organizations within Albuquerque. I like the addition of tribal organizations, but within Albuquerque, I just wonder why that was included. I don't know that we have any tribal communities specifically in Albuquerque. And so I want to make sure that we aren't limiting ourselves to just tribal organizations, because I think we should be, always networking and working with all the tribal communities.
So yes, this says engage tribal communities and urban tribal organizations within Albuquerque. I think we discussed at that last meeting that tribes did get opioid settlement funds on their own. This only says that we should be playing nice and working with and talking to. And I definitely support, I don't know whether urban tribal was in there or not, but we do have plenty of organizations, and there's a whole bunch of people that maybe don't wish to move here, but do because of the employment opportunities that aren't present in their home community.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And then Section 5, information availability and dashboard. We say now, we did not say before, but I believe now we say that the LGCC recommends that the city, county, and APS collaboratively fund, design, and implement a dashboard. And again, I just haven't heard APS say that they have funding that's available to provide for a public-facing dashboard. I did hear in the last meeting, Vice Chair said that, they were, of course, willing to provide data for that. But funding, I just wanted to check on that before we finalize this document.
Yes, thank you. I do remember that from the last conversation about that they were willing, that we do. I think I would suggest we have an expectation that they're providing live information for that public transparency dashboard. But I do believe the conversation was not about funding. How does, go ahead,
Okay, sorry.
Vice Chair Jackson.
Madam Chair. Yes, that was my understanding as well, that we can provide data. Absolutely. We have a robust data service, but that the funding was going to come through the city and the county was my recollection of that discussion.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Councilor Rogers?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. Is there a reason APS couldn't collaboratively fund that with all the organizations with $9.6 million, especially since we're saying we want you to be collecting it, all of that? Is there a reason I mean, because we don't know what the cost is for that anyway, so I think we would have to negotiate what can you do, what can you kick in, what can you, between the three entities. I think because we've made APS an equal partner in this work, then we should all share the cost of transparency to our community.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
So, yeah, so the 9.6, my understanding is that that is going to the Crossroads program. And I, as a single board member, or even my fellow board member Benavides, we cannot commit the entire board or the entire APS without a board vote to funding. Now, we have a budget discussion that is going to start to come up, but I can't sit on the dais and give individual funding agreements without going to the full board.
Madam Chair, neither can any of us, and that's why this says recommends. This is just a recommendation like everything else in this. You would have to still take it back to your respective body and come back to LGCC with what's possible. So this is just a recommendation.
Councilor Travis.
Sorry, I'm looking, do you want me to jump in? Okay. I mean, we can take it back to our full board.
Thank you.
I think that's a reasonable request. We're a part of this. We should share in the cost.
Thank you, Councilor Benavides.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And then the last question I just had was on section, it might be a different number now, 13, restricted uses. In the original document that we had passed out of the subcommittee, it had additional restrictions that included advertising and related contractual services, and vending machines and related contractual services. I heard Mr. Rael say that they had removed the vending machines from their work plan, but now it's no longer in here as a restricted use, and so I just wanted to see when the change was made and what was the basis for the change.
I actually that's not how I recall. I really believe that these were the only three that we ended up, we had robust discussion about the other two, but in my recollection, which maybe we need to go back, it was that these were the three that were, that we said we all agreed we didn't want to be.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am looking at the document that was emailed out to the committee after the last subcommittee meeting, and it had 5. And so it had 3 when it was brought back to the full committee last time, but we never saw that. And I'm not saying that I like those. I'm actually fine with removing at least the advertising related contractual services, and probably the vending machines and related contractual services as well, just that this body never had that conversation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We did in depth have this conversation last meeting about the one we took out based on legal, those safe use sites, because legal said that's not even allowed in the state of New Mexico, so we don't need to restrict something that's already illegal. So we talked about that. We talked about in depth the vending machines, and so that's why those were removed after the last meeting we talked about all of that. I know we had a lot of meetings and a lot of things discussed, but we definitely in length talked about the restricted uses.
Thank you. I've been at every meeting and I'm looking at the 2 documents. So I'm just saying that there's a difference between the document that we were sent after the last subcommittee meeting and the document that we were presented last time. And all I'm trying to understand is why we removed them. Thank you for the explanation.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Thank you.
Councilor
Thank you.
Kraut.
I remember what Councilor Feeblecorn had said as well. And I know that there was some discussion about, well, it's not state statute, or it is in the state statute. But I think there is discussion in Santa Fe of amending that and making it legal. And I sure don't want our money to go to those safe use sites. I don't think that's healthy.
Well,
I think it should be in there.
I think there's a couple routes we can go if we feel clear that this was somehow, and again, we did a short turnaround timeline between our city, transferred over our work to the county, and so I want to give all of us grace that if something is missing that wasn't there, I don't think it was intentional. At least I know I did not have a part in that. So I think there's a couple of ways we could go now. If folks feel adamant about adding some restricted uses, we can add them as amendments. Or I don't know if there's another process to find out what was in the original document that was approved.
Madam Chair, just a point. We went through, because of the confusion in the document, we went through every single line and read every single line of it last meeting. And so if I would agree, if somebody wants to make some amendments, let's go to the amendments.
I would prefer that just for ease sake, so we're not trying to find out where it might have gotten lost or misrepresented. Is there amendments that anyone wants, Councilor Grout or anyone else?
I would like to propose an amendment, please.
Yes, thank you. Go ahead, Councilor Grout.
Would it be amendment D or E? I don't know.
I ask our professionals for help.
But I would like to add in restricted uses, safe use sites, and vending machines.
So both restricted safe use sites and vending machines, the
Yes.
two. Okay. Do we have a second for that amendment? Commissioner Oliva seconded, Councilor Grout amendment. Any discussion? Okay, roll call.
Yes, Madam Chair. Madam Chair Barboa,
No.
Commissioner Benson,
I think he's not on.
Commissioner Olivas,
Yes.
Councillor Rogers,
No.
Councillor Feeblecorn,
Yes.
Councillor Champagne,
Yes.
Councillor Grout,
Yes.
Dr. Singhal,
Yes.
Madam Vice Chair Courtney Jackson,
Yes.
APS member Heather Benavides,
Yes.
so called.
Thank you. That passes on a 7-2 vote. Thank you again for the discussion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That's all I had. I think Dr. Singhal might have additionals.
Great.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There are several items that I would pose for potential amendments, but I think it's likely futile to propose. But I think it's important to put on the record because I think it's critical for us to think about and know the things that have happened over the last 2 years. And I don't want to rehash every moment for the last 2 years, but I know that there has been a lot of work done and a lot of community engagement with the Vital Strategies process that included many people across, lots of platforms. And so based upon the Vital Strategies report that came forward and the amount of work that was put in by the city and the county employees that worked through that process to ensure effective community engagement, ensure that professionals were engaged in that work, practititioners, experts, lived experience, folks that have been engaged in this throughout their lives, as well as in just community that has seen the issues that have arisen. I would propose, for example, that we would strike Section 11. Specifically because the city of Albuquerque, we don't have the access to reoccurring behavioral health tax funds. And that is, unfortunate to have these dollars that are uniquely important for the city of Albuquerque to work to treat and support individuals that need help today. They need help right now. We see them in our community. We know they need help. And to restrict the type of expense for the city of Albuquerque to be able to use opioid settlement funds to support in the treatment of individuals, to me, is just incredibly unfortunate. I'd also propose an amendment if, again, I know these are futile, so an amendment that would strike Section 7. Section 7 locks down $20 million of precious dollars to give to capital projects that, you know, someday might come around to making a difference. You know, nonprofits that can put other dollars together and make sure that these capital projects can move forward and meet criteria. You know, maybe those dollars will get expended and maybe they will get allocated, and hopefully those bodies will actually do the work that this settlement agreement requires. That's the issue. Those dollars, we're responsible that the work that is done with those dollars, in perpetuity for those dollars, if it's capital, is for the purposes of this settlement. And we don't have control over other entities that may go and build a property or build something and repurpose that for other purposes. My point is simply this, that, you know, I've been at the city for approximately 18 months. And this work has been going on in our city for a long time. And I believe in the people at the county. I believe in our city employees. I believe in the experts and the professionals that we hire, that they're doing work that I think they are contributing significantly to make a difference. And I recognize I'm the only non-elected individual sitting up here. And I fully believe that the work has been well-intentioned by this commission. I believe that the work of LGCC working to have vital strategies bring forward a comprehensive study that allowed full review of what's happening in this community and what is making a difference and what are the things we can do that meet the obligations of this settlement was remarkable work with great, good guardrails, really good guardrails. Lots of things that we narrowed down then to a much more specific focus, I understand. But, you know, as the CAO, I drive around and see what's happening in the city just like every one of you does. I spend a lot of time looking at every single inch of the city and what we're doing and the impact that we are having. And I see people that need help today. I see people that are desperate for us to put these dollars to action and support them in their needs for treatment, which is a reoccurring expense. For me to provide treatment, I have to pay somebody to have a person to provide treatment. I have to have the opportunity at the city of Albuquerque to use opioid settlement dollars to support individuals that need help today, not someday when we get around to finally distributing a grant because we've designed a grant process that both bureaucracies have agreed to, both elected bodies have agreed to, both elected bodies have put representation to make selections and go through a process. I need to help people today. I need help for people that right now are knocking on our doors and asking us to provide dollars for someone to help them with access to recovery, access to treatment, access to housing that's stable, that supports them in that, access to the tools that they need. So again, I don't have any intention of undermining the work that is happening here, but I believe we have really critical work in front of us right now. And so locking down these dollars for someday, locking down these dollars for someday when a nonprofit has the opportunity to get the dollars together to make a capital project fit and make it happen is to me turning our backs on the folks that right now need help and need us to ensure that we can spend dollars on treatment, help, and the items that we've seen before us. So with that, I just want to be very respectful and let you know that I can't support a plan that puts us in a position that we just can't get money to people as quickly as we need to. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Singal. Councilor Rogers?
So I'm just asking for clarification. Do we want to move those amendments to vote on them? We would start with your section 11 and then move, but I'm just asking for clarification if you wanted to actually move those amendments or not.
Thank you, Counselor. We can do it for the signal that if we all would like to. I'm happy to move those amendments if everyone would like to take a vote. I think last meeting was very clear, the intentions based on those votes, but I will rest.
Sure. Madam Chair, is there any amendments that would be would allow us to keep them in there and just change the dollar amounts?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Councilor Rogers. I think the reality is locking down the city to the fact that we can only spend $2.3 million a year to serve people, what by people, is just, I don't know that there's any number that makes sense that we would say that we think that type of expense is the wrong thing to do when we don't have, like I said, access to the same types of funding streams for behavioral health that the county has available to them in their decision processes. So I wouldn't entertain a different number for reoccurring. I guess I would say my opinion is that they should be struck.
Thank you. I do want to just comment on I mean, we're in discussion, we don't have a motion, but I'm the chair, so I'll talk. I think we all had those town halls, and I've heard a lot of people reference what they heard from their community. And I could tell you that our town hall at the International District Library had over 100 people, like I think 189 people, something incredible. And we held other community meetings which were largely affected. What I heard loud and clear, being in the sort of heart of it, in the middle of the storm, was that folks need treatment, and they call it this golden hour. They kept calling it the golden moment, the golden hour, that right now someone comes to the realization, and I've talked to all those Keep Animal Alive moms, that their family member needs treatment, or they finally are at the place where they are ready and they're asking for it, that's the golden moment to get them into programming. Right now, there is not a place that does that. And that has been the frustration of family members supporting. They're Googling and looking about how they detox their own loved one from their homes and bedside. And I've heard from a number of people that now have experienced detoxing a loved one because they could not get them into that golden moment. So I agree with you. This is especially the reoccurring. I think the folks on this body, I've heard folks want to see a building. A building does not solve. And I don't think, not only am I close to the folks that work this, I think I've mentioned before that I'm a daughter of a heroin user and an alcoholic. And when we don't have the programs, there's many buildings. There's Desert Hills, there's an old Casa Hermosa, and so both, for me, both the non-recurring really limits us, and the priority on capital projects is another place that I think we're really missing the mark when, and not what I heard from those community members. And so we're disregarding those in a lot of ways here, especially when we tie our hands. So I would just wanted to make that comment. I think if you're at rest, Dr. Single. All right. Any other comment? Okay, great. Oh, yes, Commissioner Olivas.
Has there been a motion?
No.
Okay, I was just making sure. I just wanted to say that it's been a long haul, and a much gratitude to Councilor Rogers and the entire team that sat on the subcommittee, to the city and county staff. I know that this hasn't always been easy, and there have been lots of difficult moments and hard things to work through, and that's ultimately what this is. I mean, we all deal with it. It's highly emotional. It's people's lives. It's these life or death outcomes in many cases, and so this is not an easy thing to work on. And I think that we've come together with a product here that is very well balanced. And I don't know that everybody is completely thrilled. We would be thrilled if we had more money, right? I think if there was more resources to allocate, this would be a lot easier. But that's the answer to all these problems, right? Is, well, if only we had more. So I really do think that we've done the very best that we could with a limited pot of money. It sounds like a lot of money. I know that when I came into office and got my first briefing from Mr. Martinez, it sounded like, oh my gosh, this is a transformational amount of money. And then you look at the time frame when it comes in, and you look at the restrictions on what it can be used for, and you look at what's already been spent, right? You go through all that, and you start saying, this isn't that much money in the scheme of the billion-dollar budgets that all three of our entities authorize annually. So I really think that this sets us up for a very good path forward, and I just want to commend all my colleagues that have, worked together on this, even though we, votes haven't always been unanimous, but that's okay. That's why we take votes. That's why we work together. But at the end of the day, I really do think this is a work product that we can be proud of, and that we will look back in a number of years and say, we can really see where this funding went. We can actually see results from this, and I think that we've set this up in a way where hopefully, if our respective bodies implement it, we will see those results, and I'm very optimistic about where this will go. So, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Do we have a motion? Yes, Vice Chair Jackson.
Madam Chair, I move that the Local Government Coordinating Commission accept the Joint Opioid Settlement Implementation Plan as recommended.
I'll second that. Any further discussion? Thank you. Shayanti, please call the roll.
Yes, Madam Chair. Madam Chair Barboa,
Yes.
Commissioner Benson,
Yes.
Commissioner Olivas,
Yes.
Councillor Rogers,
Yes.
Councillor Fiblecorn,
Yes.
Councillor Champagne,
No.
Councillor Grout,
Yes.
Dr. Sengel,
No.
Madam Vice Chair Courtney Jackson,
Yes?
APS member Heather Benavides,
Yes.
so called.
Thank you. That passes on a 8-2 vote. Great. So that is done and did. It's been a long process. I agree. Thank you, everyone, for digging in deep and coming with your best intentions for our communities. On to item number 8, announcement of the next LGCC meeting, Thursday, April 17th, 2025, LGCC meeting at 5 p.m. here in Ken Sanchez Chambers. And if there's no other business, we are adjourned. Is there other business? Okay, we're adjourned. Yay.